At breakfast, our 7-year-old Ethan looked up from his cereal and asked, "Mom, should I tell Dad about last night?" If you like stories about real people, shocking twists, and emotional betrayals, make sure to subscribe. You won't want to miss how this one ends. The spoon in my hand froze halfway to my mouth. My son's voice was so innocent, almost cheerful, like he was asking if he could go outside and play, but those words hit me like a truck. Across the table, my wife Sarah's hand jerked so violently she knocked over her glass of orange juice. The pale look on her face reminded me of the night she got the call about her father's accident shaken. Frightened, desperate. "Eat your breakfast," she said quickly, her voice trembling just enough for me to notice. I didn't answer. I didn't move. I just stared at her. And in that frozen moment, something inside me turned cold. For months, I've been brushing off the annoying feeling in my gut, convincing myself I was imagining things. The late-night work meetings, the sudden obsession with keeping her phone locked, the faint smell of someone else's cologne clinging to her on Thursdays. I told myself I was paranoid, insecure, maybe even losing my mind, but last night proved I wasn't crazy. Sarah thought I was out of town. She thought I'd never know. But I was sitting in the dark living room, watching the feed from the hidden camera I'd installed by the back door. I saw the headlights sweep across the driveway. I saw her step out not alone. A man's arm slid around her waist as if it belonged there. They slipped into my house, laughing, careless. And then I saw them kiss in my kitchen. My kitchen, the place where Ethan eats his cereal, where I brew my morning coffee. They kissed there before disappearing down the hallway. To my bedroom, I didn't sleep a single minute after that dot now. In the clear light of morning, my son had unknowingly confirmed everything. Sarah couldn't even meet my eyes. I stood slowly, my chair scraping across the tiles, loud enough to make Sarah flinch. Ethan blinked at me, confused, milk dripping down his chin. "It's not what you think," Sarah finally said, her voice fragile, breaking. I didn't reply. Instead, I picked up my phone, tapped the screen, and hit play. The sound of Sarah's laugh, the laugh that used to be mine alone, echoed through the kitchen. She lunged across the table, desperate to snatch the phone before Ethan heard, but I pulled it back. "Go get ready for school, buddy," I said softly, my eyes never leaving hers. Ethan hesitated, sensing the tension, but obeyed. His small footsteps padded away, leaving us alone in the suffocating silence. Sarah's mask crumbled. She dropped the act. "It was a mistake," she whispered, tears brimming. It didn't mean anything, but I remembered the look in her eyes on that video. The way she stared at him was the way she used to look at me back when we were in love. How many Thursday nights have been a mistake, Sarah? My voice was low, steady, deadly calm. She opened her mouth, but no words came. That silence told me more than her lies ever could. I turned away, walked into the bedroom, and pulled out a suitcase. I wasn't packing for me. I was packing for her. The betrayal wasn't just an affair. It was an invasion of my home, my trust, my family. As I zipped the suitcase shut, Sarah appeared at the doorway, her face streaked with tears. "Please, Daniel, don't do this. Let's talk." But talking was what I'd been begging for months. Talking was what she avoided every single time. I walked past her without a word, dragged the suitcase to the front door, and set it down. "When I get back from taking Ethan to school," I said flatly, "I expect you to be gone." Her sobs followed me as I carried Ethan to the car. He looked up at me, wide-eyed. "Dad," he said softly, "are you mad at Mom?" I swallowed hard, keeping my voice even. "Nobody, it's just grown-up stuff. Go have a good day." He nodded, shouldered his backpack, and ran toward the school doors, blissfully unaware that his world was about to change forever. But my world had already changed, because the man Sarah brought into our home wasn't just a fling. He wasn't a stranger, Dot. It was Mark, my neighbor, my friend, the man I grilled burgers with last summer, the man who helped me build the deck, the man who toasted my anniversary in front of everyone. He had been eating at my table, laughing with my family, playing with my son, while secretly sleeping with my wife. The betrayal wasn't just personal, it was public. It was humiliating, Dot. My hands gripped the steering wheel until my knuckles turned white. I could barely breathe as I drove past his house. His truck was parked there, bold as ever. I slammed on the brakes, rage pounding in my chest, and marched up to his door, Dot, when Mark opened it. His face went from casual to guilty in an instant. He didn't need to say a word, his eyes said it all. "We need to talk." I growled. He stepped outside quickly, glancing behind him, clearly terrified his wife Emily might overhear. "You were in my house last night," I spat, my voice like steel. He tried to fake ignorance. "I don't know what you think you saw. I saw the video." I cut him off. "Don't lie to me again." His shoulders slumped. He rubbed the back of his neck, sighing. "Look, man, I didn't plan for this to happen. I shoved him hard against his truck. You kissed my wife in my kitchen, in front of my kids' cereal bowls. You think I care if you planned it?" His hands shot up. Okay. It wasn't just once. We've been seeing each other for a few months." The calm way he said it made me want to break his jaw. But I didn't. I wasn't going to prison over these two. "You're going to tell your wife," I said coldly. His eyes widened. "Wait, what?" "You heard me. You're going to tell Emily today, before I do. Otherwise, she sees the video herself." Mark swallowed hard, realizing I wasn't bluffing. He finally nodded. "Fine, I'll tell her. Just don't ruin everything for the kids." I almost laughed. Now he cared about the kids, after sneaking into my house while mine was asleep down the hall. I turned and walked away, leaving him standing there, his guilt painted across his face. When I got home, Sarah was sitting on the couch, suitcase by the door, her face blotchy from crying. "Did you take him to school?" she asked timidly. I nodded but didn't sit down. "I talked to him." Her eyes widened. "You told him?" "No," I said coldly. "I talked to your boyfriend?" She flinched like I'd slapped her. "He's telling Emily today. And when he does, this whole neighborhood is going to know what you've done. I hope you're ready." Sarah covered her face and sobbed. But I felt nothing. Not anger, not pity. Just emptiness. For months I doubted myself, gaslit by her lies. But now every puzzle piece fit, and as I stared at her crumbling on the couch, one truth echoed in my mind. This wasn't just betrayal. This was war. The silence in the house felt heavier than usual. Daniel sat at the edge of his bed, the soft ticking of the clock on the wall sounding like a drumbeat in his head. Every second that passed reminded him of the truth he had uncovered, the betrayal that cut deeper than any wound he had ever known. Sarah's laughter, once the sweetest sound in his life, now echoed in his ears like a cruel joke. He closed his eyes and tried to block it out, but the images of her with Mark flashed behind his eyelids like a nightmare that refused to end. He remembered the moment vividly, the hushed whispers, the stolen glances, the undeniable evidence. It wasn't just suspicion anymore, it was reality. His wife, the woman he had loved with every part of his soul, had broken their vows in the worst way possible. And the betrayal wasn't just hers. It came from someone he had trusted like family, a man he had welcomed into his home, shared meals with, and confided in. Mark wasn't just a neighbor anymore. He was the embodiment of treachery. Daniel stood up and walked slowly to the window, looking out at the quiet street. The world outside looked so normal. Children's bikes lying on lawns, porch lights flickering on as the evening settled in, a dog barking in the distance. But inside him, everything had changed. His world had collapsed, and nothing would ever feel normal again. He placed his hand against the glass, his reflection staring back at him, eyes hollow and filled with sorrow. When Sarah walked into the room, her face carried a mixture of guilt and defiance. She opened her mouth to speak, but Daniel raised his hand, silencing her. The weight of the truth between them was unbearable. Words seemed useless now, meaningless even. He had heard enough lies, enough excuses. What he needed was honesty, but from the look in her eyes, he knew it was too late. Honesty had left their relationship the moment she had chosen betrayal over loyalty. He walked past her, the air between them tense and suffocating. Sarah reached out, her fingers brushing his arm lightly, but he pulled away as if her touch burned him. He didn't recognize her anymore. She wasn't the woman he had built a life with, the woman he had once believed would stand by him no matter what. She was a stranger now, someone capable of tearing his heart apart without remorse. Downstairs, the photographs on the wall seemed to mock him. Smiling faces, happy moments, a life that now felt like a lie. He paused in front of one picture, their wedding day. Sarah's smile had been radiant, her eyes filled with promises she never intended to keep. Daniel felt a surge of anger rise within him, his hands clenching into fists. How could she do this? How could she destroy everything they had built together so carelessly? The following days passed in a blur. Sarah tried to explain herself, offering fragments of excuses that only deepened the wound. It was a mistake, she whispered one night, tears streaming down her face. But Daniel knew it wasn't just a mistake. It was a choice to betray him, a choice to break their vows. A choice that shattered his heart beyond repair. He found himself staring at Mark's house across the street, his mind clouded with thoughts he never imagined he'd have. Anger and sorrow mixed inside him like a storm, threatening to consume him. Every time he saw Mark step out with his forced smile, Daniel's chest tightened. The betrayal wasn't just about love. It was about trust, about friendship, about a bond that was meant to be unbreakable. One evening, Daniel sat alone in his living room, the dim light casting long shadows across the walls. His mind wandered back to the moments when life had felt simple, when laughter filled the rooms, when Sarah's touch had brought him comfort instead of pain. But those days were gone, replaced by a darkness he couldn't shake. He poured himself a glass of whiskey, the amber liquid reflecting the turmoil in his eyes. He wasn't a man who drank much, but tonight, he needed the fire to numb the ache inside Dot. As the days turned into weeks, the house grew colder. The warmth that once existed between them had vanished. Conversations were replaced by silence, dinners turned into lonely meals, and the love that once bound them together was nothing more than ashes. Daniel knew he couldn't keep living like this, trapped in a cage built by betrayal. Something had to change. Late one night, he found himself standing in front of Sarah again. She looked exhausted, her face pale, her eyes pleading for forgiveness. But Daniel had no forgiveness left to give. "I can't do this anymore," he said quietly, his voice trembling with the weight of his decision. "I can't live in a lie. You chose him over me, and now I have to choose myself." Sarah broke down, her sobs echoing through the empty house, but Daniel turned away. His heart ached, but he knew he was doing what was necessary. Love couldn't survive without trust, and theirs had been broken beyond repair. He gathered his things, the suitcase heavy in his hand, not just with clothes, but with memories that hurt too much to carry Dot as he stepped outside into the cool night air. He took a deep breath. The stars above looked brighter than they had in a long time, and for the first time in weeks, he felt a glimmer of hope. His journey wasn't going to be easy. Healing never was. But he knew he deserved more than betrayal. He deserved honesty, respect, and love that wouldn't falter in the face of temptation. Walking away from the house that once held his dreams, Daniel felt both broken and free. The pain was still there, sharp and raw, but beneath it, was the strength of a man who had faced the worst and survived. He didn't know what the future held, but he knew one thing for certain: this chapter was over, and a new one was about to begin. As Daniel closed the door behind him, the cool night air wrapped around his broken soul. He walked down the driveway, suitcase in hand, ready to leave the pain behind. But just as he reached the street, a voice called out softly. It was Emily, Mark's wife. Her face was pale, her eyes swollen from crying. She had been watching, waiting for this moment. "Daniel," she whispered, her voice trembling. "I need to tell you something. Something you don't know." Daniel stopped, his chest tightening. Emily's hands shook as she held out her phone, the screen glowing in the darkness. One by one, she showed him messages, proof that Sarah wasn't Mark's first betrayal. Mark had been cheating on her too, with multiple women across town. The affair with Sarah was just another secret in a long trail of lies. Daniel's stomach turned. The betrayal he thought was personal suddenly felt bigger, darker. Mark hadn't just destroyed his marriage. He had been living a double life, playing with everyone's trust. Emily's tears fell as she whispered, "You weren't the only one he fooled. He fooled all of us." For a moment, Daniel stood frozen, the truth crashing over him like a wave. His world had already collapsed, but now he realized it wasn't just about Sarah's weakness, it was about Mark's manipulation. The neighbor he once trusted had been a predator in disguise, leaving behind broken hearts and shattered families. Daniel clenched his jaw, his sorrow hardening into something new, a quiet, burning rage. He wasn't just a victim anymore. He was a man who had uncovered the truth. And as he stared back at Mark's house across the street, lit warmly as if nothing was wrong, he knew this story wasn't over.